We are back in Matthew. It's chapter 8, and we're going through, and we're going to just jump in here. So chapter 8, verses 1 through 4 is the first section in chapter 8. When he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. And behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus stretched down his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, see that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a proof to them. So this is an interesting one. I always kind of questioned why Jesus would tell people not to talk about the miracles that he's doing. And in Matthew's gospel kind of downplays the role of miracles and signs and wonders. So Jesus is telling these people, don't go. And there are a couple things that I was thinking about that, but so Jesus comes down from the mountain, right? Like he's coming down from a high place into the world, and he's bringing with him his holy presence, right? So he often goes up a mountain, and I think that there's a symbolism here of kind of elevating his authority and holiness and separateness. But the leper approaches Jesus in humility. He says, Lord, if you will. And that same word for will is used in multiple places in Matthew. And you almost get the sense that it's not like will you do me a favor, as in like that type of request, but more of how we use will as in we have a will to do something. In fact, when Jesus is praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, this is a good example of where this word is used, and the root is telo. I'm not a Greek language guy, but this idea of will is when Jesus says, if this cup can pass from me, then that would be, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me, but not my will, but your will, right? So it's almost like the will that we talk about, a will of doing something, like God's sovereign will. And Jesus says, I will, be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus tells him not to go, talking about this, just go offer his sacrifice. So he's encouraging the man to be lawful about this. He's actually encouraging him to go follow the temple rules here. And after he heals him, to not tell anybody. And I always kind of scratch my head at that. But then when you look at the things that he's doing before, when he's talking about doing good works before, this is actually consistent with what he's saying. Because he says, give so that your left hand doesn't know so your right hand doesn't know what your left is doing. Or maybe that's vice versa. Or when you're fasting, make sure you look good. Make sure you're not, contorting your face and, oh, I'm so tired, I'm so hungry. Like, don't make a big deal out of it, right? So this is kind of in line with that. He's being a living example of that. And then it goes on, verses 5 through 13. And when he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I'm not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. And to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And to the centurion Jesus replied, Go, let it be done for you as you have believed. And the servant was healed at that very moment. And so this is an interesting story for a few reasons, I think. Jewish. Matthew was Jewish, and he was a tax collector. Tax collectors were seen as traitors to their own people. They were collecting what was the Jews and giving it to Rome. He's not a good dude. He's a bad dude. And this centurion is another bad dude. Rome is there under military occupation. It's not a good thing. Anywhere that there's a huge military presence, people do not feel very comfortable in that scenario. I'll just put it that way. So in verses 5 and 6, the centurion approaches Jesus, appealing to him because his servant is sick. And Jesus says he'll come and heal him. But the centurion actually objects. And so I think this objection is kind of interesting as well, because this would have been like Jews at the time listening to this story would have said, that's really interesting. So, of course, the centurion wants Jesus to, he's not being considerate to his faith. It would be defiling for Jesus to go into the Roman centurion's home, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it would not have been a positive thing for him to enter the home of a Roman soldier. And the centurion actually says, Lord, I'm not worthy for you to even come under my roof. So there's an appeal here, and it's a humility thing, whether it's that he knows the rules of Jesus or he's saying, I don't even want to bother you that much, and I'm recognizing your greatness. So there's a humility here in his approach. And he says, I'm a man of authority, right? So he's recognizing Jesus' sovereignty here, his power, his ability to heal his servant without even being around him. And Jesus marvels and says to those following that he hasn't found faith like that in Israel, right? So the interesting part is many will come from all over and sit at the table of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven while the sons are thrown into outer darkness. Jesus tells the centurion to go and let it be done to you as you believe, right? And so after this happens, the people probably would have been astonished. Matthew is a Jew, and he's writing to a Jewish audience, and there are many, many instances of bad people, like a centurion, being a good guy in a story. And not only is he being a good guy in the story, but it's followed up with, wake up, people. Like in our context, Jesus was a Jew. He was part of the in crowd. The Jews would have seen him as one of their own, and the Jews thought they were God's chosen people. And Jesus was coming to say, you don't live as if you're God's people. You do not live with the intent of that. And you need to wake up to the reality that nothing is guaranteed. Your place is not guaranteed in the kingdom of heaven, that there is repentance that is needed. You need to recognize where you're at. And so for this global call where he says many will come from all over, many will come from different nations, even a centurion, putting a centurion over God's chosen people would have been a bucket of cold water. So this idea of the whole setup here in many of the healing, the big narrative healing stories, is to set this up to show the character of the kingdom, Jesus' mission of the kingdom, and to kind of shake things up a little bit, to make people uncomfortable. In fact, a lot of Jesus' teaching is not this big, comfortable, loving sermon that people want to paint it out to be. Most of his teaching is very uncomfortable for people. And an important thing here to note is that a lot of people use that to say that Jesus was upsetting the power dynamic and he was truth to power. He came as a rebel and all this stuff. Actually, he sides with the majority of opinion on the law most of the time that he's questioned about it. He just goes one step further and says, you're getting it wrong because you don't get the intent behind it. So it's very interesting how Jesus argues these different points, and he does not encourage people to go against temple teaching. So this idea of him being a rebel and all this, yes, was he a disturbance in the force? Was he abrasive? 100%. But he's bringing people in a radical way back to God's intent. So I thought those were very good healing stories. So having said that, I'm going to drop off here. I'll see you in the next video. But before I go, put down in the comments what you think is a good takeaway from this story. Let me know what you liked about it, what you didn't like, something that you maybe have learned, or something that I didn't outline here. Let's get a conversation started. And like and subscribe to these videos and catch them all as they come out. I'm going to be pumping out a lot of these videos, so I'm very excited to be doing that. But anyways, I will catch you in the next one. Until next time, peace.